というわけでね、J スポーツオンデマンド分かりました。ちゃんとありましたね。はい、なんかね7時55分からっていうなんかあったんですけど、そもそも放送してんだよね。はい、ちょっとまあそんなにね、朝までって言うけど1時間ぐらいかも分かんないですけどね。これ拡大しようか。拡大してもいいし、誰も来ないでしょもう。いやー夜綺麗ね。これさ、超いい視点。More so on the number 44 bike between Lucas Gasser and Alexei Mazbu, who are probably the tallest rider and the smallest rider in the one team. One thing I have noticed a couple of teams do, I've noticed in the Honda team, うわー夜いいね。すごい綺麗ね。ライトがさ。ただバイク見えないんだよね。今 OG モータースポーツバイサラジンは4位ですね。SST クラスで。一番吉村ですね。で2位がヤートヤマハですね。記念カラーの。でね、結構明るいそうです。鈴鹿に比べて全然明るいそうですね。で、夜間の走行では、あれね、コースが見やすいそうです。でね、SST のね、3位とOG モーターさんとで、残念ながらワンラップあるんですよね。で、TSR が8番手ですね。で、SST トップが7番手ということで、結構ね、1、2、3、4、4番手ね。で、おそらくこのままいけば4か3番に上がるかも。維持できるか。もうだいぶ差が空いてきてるのよね。ちなみにね、ライブタイミング的にね、行くと、現在ですね、ちょっと待ってね、今出てくるからね。ライブタイミングとしては、66号車の心くんと、がね、同一ラップ集なんですね。で、トップから9ラップ差になってて、タイム差が分かんないな、これ。タイム差どこで見んの？ギャップはね、1分23秒。66と1分10秒あるから、これは大丈夫ではないんやけども、トラブルがなければね、大丈夫ですね。ちなみに、吉村とヤートヤマハの差がワンラップあるんで、これはね、吉村は多分ノントラブルになると思う。66番が今現在のライダーさんが、プランクラスセジンアレックスさん、アレックスね。で TSR はちょっと待って TSR ジョッシュが
レーディング。ちなみに、今ね、いやー、吉村早いな。1分53秒。ベストラップか。ベストラップがね、1分53秒707。ちなみにね、吉村のね、最新のラップが1分50秒964なんですよ。で、ジョッシュのタイムが1分55秒180ね。で、66番の心くんのとこがピットインだね。これということは次心くんだね。多分。1分56秒424は多分心くんのタイムだね。56秒いったんだね、でも。ベストラップで。ね。今ピットインね。ここで順位が変わります。1、2、3、4。変わらないね。1分やから変わらないね、ピットインだったら。ピットアウト。66でした、ピットアウト。はい。渥美心。イエーイ。ね。さあ、心くんがライディングということで、ちょっと映像を見たいと思います。残念ながらね、映してくれないから、これ分からないね、エアカンは。全く分かんないですね。1、2、3、4、5、4番、ね。これでも多分ね、だいぶ変わらないね。変わらないと思います。変わらないね。ピットアウトになってるけど変わらないね。S1 はまだね、あれでアウトラップなんで。でね、さあ、心くんがね、どれぐらいのタイム叩くかだよね。S2 29秒67にセクター3セクター3がこれはね、抜かれないけど抜くのが大変かもね。セクター3がまだだね。さあどう来るか。V4 Panigale at the moment sitting third in the standings, and that, I'm afraid, is a problem for the BMW squad. セクター3でまだ来ない。来たね。セクター3はまだね。これでこれから出してきますからね。さあ、心は K じゃないよ、 C だよ。ダメだよ。C だよ。K になるのか。ちげえよ。Pretty obvious, but you can see the team there just coordinating what it's going to be like when the bike gets returned and how they're going to tackle this issue out on track. But either way, that is a huge turn of events for the number 37 BMW squad, and they weren't doing too badly at all in terms of the standings going into this one on board the number 37, but sitting in third in the championship for the EWC. But well, they are going to have a difficult task to try and keep that position if they're in the pit lane for a long time. We saw just how much it can affect you with the likes of the number 4, the wee bike machine, that was in the pit lane for just over 20 minutes, and now the BMW Motorrad outfit are going to have to coordinate the return of that bike and to see how quickly they're going to be able to get the machine repaired and back out on track, hopefully, if they are able to do that, of course. It's
どうでもいいのか。
certainly if we don't know the state of the damage or what happened to the motorcycle at this point.
ちなみに36秒665セクター1、セクター2が29秒151、早いね。でも28秒ぐらいいって、28秒台いってくれるとね。ということでまだだね。これからこっちがごめんなさい、違うとこ見てた。でボケてんのか。セクター3で来ましたね。1分59秒。ダメか、違和感なんで。これ日中のベストタイムだよね。でもね、結構早いね。他も。SST で、でもね、SST はね、58秒とか、56秒早いね。やっぱ24号早いね。で、他58、58、59なんでね。まあ、2週、3週とかね、上がってると思うんで。タイム、これぐらいはええか。
So at the start of the race, they'll have a calculation for how many laps they can do. But as the race wears on and we go into the night where the temperatures cool down, it affects how much fuel the bike uses. Also things like the size of the rider, I've mentioned them already, but Lucas Gasser is far bigger than his teammate Alexei Masbu. So you would imagine that he would use more fuel, he's less aerodynamic, he weighs more. And all these factors are all coming into it all the time. So they're trying to run the bikes on the limit, push it to as many laps as they can to get out of them. But at the same time, they can't afford to run out of fuel because obviously the consequences are massive. And
これ目が持つんだろうか。
BMW team here, but it has happened during this race, and it happened earlier to the Wojcik team actually, number 77 bike, which is Dan Linfoot and Gino Rea. Gino Rea got stranded and had to push his bike back into the pit. So. Yeah, it's one of the challenges of this race, I guess, that it's part of it.
Pretty fatiguing being out there on track for a long period of time. The last thing you want to do, I imagine, is push a 168-kilo motorcycle back down the pit.
Definitely not.
Just had a question through on Twitter from
1分59秒
EWC commentary. Question: How difficult is it to come from a darker part of the track into the bright lights of the straight during the night?
58秒台頑張ってほしいね。
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of sink or swim. Oh, so here we go. This is number 37, which is the BMW team, which says box one.
58秒台ね。
So that would, to me, say you need to come in to get fuel in the bike. And perhaps he's missed the signal, or I don't know. I could be jumping to conclusions, but I think that's what they're trying to tell us there. But yeah, the light to dark thing, you kind of just have to get on with it, I guess. And it's harder in the darker places, trying to see where you're going. But coming into the bright lights, I guess the lights aren't actually that bright. The floodlights are up high, so you're not going to be directly
ほんと明るいね。
it just
コースが。
be easier riding on those parts of the track where it is lit.
Well, just under 7.5 hours then into this race, going down in towards the right hand that we look, and I believe that's the Yoshimura Suzuki that's out in front, literally and physically in this race. So you can see him going there through the left-hander, followed by the ERC Endurance Ducati. The Ducati, of course, sitting in third position in this race so far, with Antoine Masson so far. Good job for the V4 Panigale, and just setting it up the inside there of Sylvain Guintoli. Not an overtake for position, but I'm sure that'll give him the impetus to try and increase that gap as the race continues on. Nice to see them running side by side down that start finish straight there as well. We're going to get some highlights of the race so far in just a few moments time as well, and catch up
9時間じゃなくて7時間か、そういう。
at the
さっ
ball
き
door.
9時間だったけど、どういうことどういうこと
Right-hander there, you can see Ginter has just managed to get the better of that V4 Panigale for the time being.
でも10時間でなってんねんけど。
Change of position there for
え、
7th
これ
place.
どういうこと
Looks like Josh Hook on the Honda has got himself ahead of Michalczyk, of course. That's the
あ、
27 that ran
そう
out of
か。
fuel, so
ま
explains
だ
why.
7時間だったね。
It's going down the order, but not good at all there for them. They were sitting inside the top 5. They're already down to 8th, and the bike's not even back in the pit lane yet.
Yeah, and these riders are all stacked up behind them now that will be gaining positions back on them. And
これはアーカイブ残さないん
it's
で。
not easy pushing a bike back, so I'm not sure what area of the track he was at where he had to push it back from.
So let's take a look then, shall we, at some highlights of the Boldor 24 then so far. Got underway, of course, in typically beautiful conditions. Running towards the bike, the crowd cheering at the Circuit de Paul Ricard as we got the Boldor 24 underway here. The riders
ハイライト。
coming away from the starting grid and down towards that first corner. And of course, it's all about how quick of a runner you are, I suppose.
Yeah, or how quickly you can start the bike. That on the white bike there in the middle of the picture, that's the Yacht bike, which is currently second in the race. And for whatever reason, they never seem to be able to get their bike started off the start, no matter where they qualify. They're in the middle of the pack, setting off from the race.
No, absolutely right. And you can see here as
ライ
the
ブタイミング見
race
せよ
is
う。
in its
ライブタイミン
formative
グね。
stages.
おっさんね、
Formative
今
stages,
ズボン
I
履い
should
てない
say,
んで。
rather than the SRTs
立
as
て
you
ないんで。
themselves ahead. A nice
はい、ライブタイミングね。これウェブで見れますからね。EWC の公式のところでよかったら見てください。で、一応ね、早いね。夜間でもね、54秒。50秒ね。で、これすごいのがね、この24番のこのタイムがね、55秒でしょ。56秒か。もうちょっと早かったんですけどね。心くんが今走っております。KO じゃない CO です、ね。ちょっと上がってきました。58秒379ね。夜間なので、現在4位ですね。クラス4位となっております。ちょっとね、映像はね、今川崎だね、ウェビック川崎ね。
either Jeremy Guanoni or David Checker had at that point in the race. I think it might have been Guanoni who was on board the motorcycle.
これ、じゃあごめんなさい、ハイライトだ。ハイライト。
Technical problems for the SRC Kawasaki WeBike team, and not what they would have wanted at all. A very dejected Guanoni as a result of that, and that's another rider coming into the pit box. It is, yeah, on the Wojcik Yamaha.
There's smoke coming outside. That's oil.
Oil coming out, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so what Gino will have felt there is his foot will have slipped off the foot peg, I'd imagine. He'll have oil in his boot, and at that point you can feel that. So you'll go into a corner, your foot will come flying off the foot peg, and all of a sudden it's a worst nightmare for a rider because you're panicking at that point that there's oil coming out and you might fall off the bike. So yeah, big panic.
Overall classification of the race after 7 hours, you can see Yoshimura Suzuki now 1 minute and 2 seconds ahead of the Yacht Yamaha team. Then it's the ERC Ducati from the Eagle Experiences 333. Then it is the number 96 of Moto One with Randy DePunier, who's currently out. First of the Stop 1000 class is the Kawasaki's
10ラップ
position, doing a great job out there. Of course, having benefited from others' misfortune, the BMW Motorrad World Endurance team and the Wojcik Yamahas as well, having struggled with their own issues. Wojcik, we just saw coming into the pit lane there with oil coming out of the bike.
ノーリミットモーター
BMW Motorrad
よりいけるかどうかだね。
having problems with their bike stopping out on track. We believe at this early stage it may have been a case of running out of fuel. Relatively spread out in the rest of the Stop 1000 category. Nice little battle going on for 18th position. They're still on the same lap as you can see there. The Matisse, the only experimental bike in the class, down in 28th position. And it's a very unusual machine, that. And I'm sure when Terry Reimer comes on to the commentary later, he'll be talking and I'm sure waxing lyrical about that machine. You can see we've had sadly a few teams who have not fared so well in the race so far. The British endurance team down there in 36th and last place 79 laps down. LRP Poland just a bit further up in the last of the classified superbike runners, also with some problems. And speaking of problems, this is the BMW Motorrad endurance team then, the number 37, who we know have had all of those problems there so far. They go tumbling down the order with we'll check the Ukrainian rider pushing his bike back to pit lane. And still
うわー、なんか8体思い出すな。押してさ。
Yeah, you did. You asked what it's like to push a 160 kilo superbike. I think there's your answer. It's if he could stop at this stage, I'm sure he would. But there's a lot of points on the line, and you'll just keep pushing it back, slogging it out until they can hand it over to the mechanics, and they can push it the rest of the way.
Yeah, far rather him than I wonder if he's going to get a bit of an assistance from the marshals. He's coming
back
down to pit lane now, so this is good news there for him as the team can finally take over and give him a bit of assistance. And we saw earlier on that the BMW Motorrad team are going to, of course, have to coordinate how they deal with this. And whether it's just a case of fuel having run out, I wonder whether they're going to have to make any adjustments. Just sitting in there briefly to see whether 216 or something is what he said there.
I think he said
お、すごい。これすごいね。
switched off. When he put his hand into the front of the bike there, there's a switch for the dashboard to switch the dash on and off. And he said it just switched off. So why that is, I don't know. But it's clearly more than just fuel, because if it was just fuel, they wouldn't be having this conversation. If the bike's
リアルタイ
at
ムすぎるわ。
60 degrees, that's too hot. They normally run at about 80 degrees is an optimal temperature. So if it's gone to 116, it may just
ああ、はいはい
be
はい。
that there's something
す
wrong
ごい
with
ね。
the bike
デー
that's
タ
making
全
it
部
do
出てく
that.
るんだよね。
It could be that there's a water leak and there's no water in the
ラッ
radiator
プタイム
at all.
224周まで。
Cause the bike to overheat. But yeah, we'll
で、
have three mechanics that are now overheating, pushing that bike back.
これいいや、最新でいいや。
He's actually gone in the last 10 minutes.
Exactly, yeah, they'll have to get this back in, and it's not going to be a simple fix, I don't think. It'll be a case of stripping this bike down now.
I feel sorry for the cameraman there, having to run down
1分58秒でいい
the
ですよ
camera
ね。
on him as well. So Mikkelchek then comes into the pit lane and into the box. Let's hope that the BMW Motorrad team are going to be able to get this one fixed then before too long. All action stations then behind the number 37, sitting down in 11th in the standings in this race here so far.
で、上の方がピットイン入ってるけど、2ラップ差なんでね。ちょっときついね。
Now, I wonder what they're going to be thinking at this point here.
Yeah, so normally how this works in a team, what happens is they'll ask the rider what they felt. So in this case, the rider said that he saw it was overheating. It'll have a temperature display on the bottom of the screen. So he said it's gone to 116 degrees. He's also said that it's switched off. And then there's kind of like a flow chart from that point, if you like. The mechanics have various causes of certain problems, and there's only a few things that can cause each problem. So then it's just a case of checking each part that would cause that problem, either replacing it or assessing to see whether that part's broken. And then they move on to the next thing, and that's what the Kawasaki team did. We saw that earlier. They just start removing parts from the bike until their bike was running on 3 cylinders, so that they'll first check to see if there's an electrical problem, and then gradually work their way backwards till you get to the engine, and then if the engine's gone, then that's it, you've had it. So the BMW team will be doing the same thing now, checking parts off piece by piece, and
でも見えないんだよね。イゴール explains
and Nico to roll because they were around the BMW's position and then moved up into fourth position now.
Yeah, great stuff there for them. They're going to be coming in for a rider change and change of wheels as well. So in comes the Yamaha to their pit box, and let's see which of the Florians is going to go onto that bike. Or indeed, whether Nico is going to go onto that bike. Into the box they come, and the rider there helping out as they puts more fuel into the tank.
I think that was Florian Marino that got off, and Florian Alt that's about to get on it here.
From one Florian to another.
Yeah, Florian's the biggest difference is about a foot in height between the two of them. Florian's a really tall rider, you can see here as he gets out of the pits.
Well, that's quite apt, really. His name is Alt, because in certain languages, Alt means tall, doesn't it?
ちょっとまずいかも。眠くなってきたわ。
Very basic linguistic skills, of which I'm still struggling with English, come into their own at least. Oh dear. Well, Florian out then out on track for the number 333 Yamaha team then. They're sitting in fourth place now, benefiting from the exit of the number 37 BMW Motorrad outfit. Of course, the number 37 M1000RR now back into the pit lane as they try and diagnose what the technical issue was. That bike has been heating and stopping out on track with Mikkel Czech behind the handlebars of that machine. So a hopefully not too lengthy diagnosis period going on for them.
あれこれドイツラップになった
So
ぞ。
let's see what the Yamaha team are going to do as Ginters still continues on the number one with the Surge Suzuki leading the way. So difficult to understate just what a brilliant job Sylvain Gintoli's done with that Yoshimura Suzuki, just increasing that advantage now. And he's now, according to my timing screen, got a lap over Marvin Fritz on the number 7. So that's very impressive.
Yeah, they've just been doing the solid job like we talked about, and also not only are they eking time out on the track, they're eking it out off the track as well in the pits by having pit stop in a later time in each run. They're doing longer stints than the other bikes, and that's also going to save them an extra pit stop by the time we get to the end of the race.
これ行くんじゃない
So
の
we talked about rider fatigue earlier on, Taylor, as well. One thing I wanted to talk about, I know these stints aren't too long, but 45 minutes on a set of tyres, how worn are they going to be
これさ、ギャップがさ、
come to the end of their stints?
Yeah, it depends on the firstly on the temperature.
あ、これ抜くぞ。14秒。
Certain temperatures, I talked about a window of temperature, of a sort of a working temperature for each
そうじゃないの
If it's in that window, then the chances are the tyre will last for the stint. But tyres normally,
あのね、14秒差なので、これ3位いくぞ。
using a slightly harder and they stay consistent throughout the stint. I've heard Xavi Forest say that he was able to set his fastest lap on some of his last laps on the Dunlop tyres that they use. The Pirelli tyres that we use in Superstock racing or in Superbike generally have really good grip for 2 or 3 laps, and then the grip drops off to a certain point on the 3rd, 4th and 5th lap, and then it will stay a similar amount the whole way through the race. You kind of lost that initial grip, but you've got a certain amount left, and you sort of manage your tyres.
あのね、セクター1が2秒縮めてるから12秒なのね。で、セクター2でどうなるか。あ、セクター2でも1秒近く。いや、3秒縮めてるから11秒だ。
And then had to pit early because there was nothing left of it. It was blistering and he had to come back in to change it. So it's a case of managing it. The riders are all really experienced. They know what it feels like when the tyre starts going off, and they'll try and stand the bike up more, get it onto the faster part of the tyre so they're not accelerating on the side of the tyre and spinning it up and burning it out.
So one thing as well to mention, as you say, those tyres coming down in terms of how much grip they have. How do you adapt as a rider to that? Because I've been fortunate enough to do cars and a bit of bikes as well. And obviously in a car you've got a lot more opportunity to forgiveness if the tyres are going off, because you've got a lot, stability. If you overstep the limits of grip, you generally run wide, or you have a bit of oversteer or understeer, and it's not too much.
ほら、2秒でしょ。11秒になったんだよ。
How do you learn to read that?
Yeah, it's just time on bikes and experience. The biggest thing on these super bikes is, if you imagine when you're leant over at maximum lean angle, you've got a tiny contact patch with the tarmac, and that tiny contact patch is where your problems start occurring. So if you've got a lot of brake at that point, you could lose the front.
あとはピットインの差だね。
We've got another problem here with the Honda. Yeah, that's facing the rear set.
That was what Yuki Takahashi crashed earlier on, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've got a problem with the rear brake, because they're removing the whole.
で、次とに、でもね、下も来てんだよね。いや、ちゃう。これどうなの ?10 ラップでしょ ?11 ラップやこれ26秒っていうのは、あ、そういうことか。どうなの
I've heard that some teams in this race don't use the back brake at all, so they don't have to use swap rear brake pads. But the fact that they're changing theirs would, to me, tell me that they are using it and they need it to work again, or they've got
すごいね。
jamming on, or I don't know, it could be anything. But yeah, the fact that they're changing it now.
Not great, is it?
No, it's not costing too much time, but it's still costing some time there.
On the other side, it's so impressive to see them being able to change a rear set so quickly. I'd love to be able to have the flexibility to do that, but either way, not costing them too much time, but a mechanic taking a bit of a dive there as they come out the pits. The SRT team now coming in, Gintoli off the bike, and they're changing over another rider. So Greg Black goes out on the SERT Suzuki, and Gintoli back into the box after another stint on his machine, and it's looking relatively okay. 45 minutes, that's the length of a MotoGP race. You can see the race tape there on the hands as it's sort of quickly referred to. I'm guessing that's to stop blisters and such like?
Yeah, exactly. It just protects his hand there. You'll see it will pull off underneath your hands there where you grip the handlebars. Most motorbike racers have calluses where getting constant blisters on your hand, it wears in your hands. But over the course of a race like this, because you're riding for such a long time, your calluses don't really do that much, and you can still get blisters on top of those, and then the blisters can burst and it becomes uncomfortable. So I think it's sort of there as a bit of a preventative measure really to stop it happening later in the race, and keep putting that on during the race.
Well, let's hope that no blisters on his fingers there for Sylvain Gintoli. Greg Black now out on the bike. I had an interview with him earlier on. He's got a relatively distinct accent, but I also understand he's very fluent in French.
Yeah,
He's
French by nature, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's actually adopted that. He's become a Frenchman now, I think. So it's funny listening to him and Sylvain, because Greg's an English background.
すごいねこれ。
France for a long time, and Sylvain's in a French background, but lived in England for a long time. So we've got the reverse of each other's Derbyshire accents. It's quite funny listening to.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said about Sylvain Gintoli, and
8秒だから次ね6秒ぐらい。
like warm honey in your ears. I was like, it's a heck of a way to describe it, but you know, let's have a listen to see what he's got to say. Relatively good feedback. Seems like he's pretty happy with that. No complaints, no gesticulations with the arm movements and so on.
No, he said that the bike stayed relatively constant, and that he'll be referring to grip when he's talking about that. The tyre stays consistent throughout the stint, and that's a good thing for a rider to have.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Greg Black now out on that SRT Suzuki.
じわじわ来てるぞ。
I think
あ、でもそうか、9回ピットなのか。
Sylvain Gintoli, after that 50-minute stint, increasing the advantage over the rest of the competition. SERT Suzuki doing a brilliant job of just maintaining their stronghold over the competition. So let's head down to the Suzuki pit box and find out what's what.
I'm with Sylvain Gintoli. You're leading the race, but we're now into the night. What is the nighttime strategy?
There's no strategy really for now. We're just trying to keep our rhythm, keep constant. The lap times are actually faster than we thought, so it's going quite well. The grip is quite good, and this relay for me was quite fun because I was with Etienne Masson, and I think I just lapped him, and then we're fighting for quite a few laps, so it was good fun. So yeah, we just keep going for now, trying to stabilize the gap and look after the bike, and yeah, try and get through the night.
And everyone's really interested to know, do you actually get to sleep in the night?
Not really. I tried in the first time when I tried the 24-hour in Le Mans. I tried to sleep, but it makes things worse. You just wake up after 40 minutes, super grumpy, super tired. You don't want to get back on it. You're aching everywhere. So normally, I don't think you can sleep really well. Just micro sleeps, like sometimes with the physio, you can sleep like 5-10 minutes. But that's about it. So yeah, it's tiring.
Best of luck, Sylvain.
40 minutes, grumpy, tired and
すげえ、
That
こ
sounds
れ
like me after a good night's sleep. God dear. Sylvain Guintoli there, good to
着実に
catch up with him.
縮
Seems
め
like
て
he's
るね。
relatively comfortable out there on track, and well, the Suzuki team have been exactly that over the course of this weekend. So let's see whether they can continue that good run of form over the remainder of this race. Just under 8 hours, we are already into the Boulder, and the Suzuki team have done a fantastic job of asserting their authority. See another rider coming down the pit lane here then. Looks like that's change. So we want the Yamaha teams as they come into the pit box. Let's see if we can catch up and see what's happening here then. So it's the number 96. It is a Yamaha coming into the box.
Randy DePugna here does not look happy.
No. Robin Mulhauser, Robbie Rolfo also riding that bike. Looks like it's going to be Rolfo, I believe, that's getting on the bike. Yep. Or is it Mulhauser?
No, that's Rolfo.
No, it is Rolfo, you're right. So, Randy DePugna, the rather petite Frenchman off the bike, and Robbie Rolfo, the Italian, who also has some MotoGP experience as well. Let's not forget. And also raced in the likes of World Superbikes. I think World Super Sport once upon a time there as well. So he's a relatively seasoned competitor then, as of course is Randy DePugna, who has competed in a variety of different categories, helped in the initial stages with Suzuki's
MotoGP development
on the GSX-RR. There is DePugna, there's Freddie Forey down there as well, so we'll be catching up with him. Let's see what he's got to say.
ちょっと上げてきたね。
I think he's just going to debrief very quickly with the team and just find out where the problems are. Let's go down then and find out, see what Freddie Forey has got to say to Randy DePugna.
お、うわ、1秒縮まったよ。すげえぞこれ。心くんすげえ追い上げてるね。44番にね、あと 6.189 なんだよね。
Beautiful. Everything were good. Pit stop improved a lot than the other race, so we need to continue on the same pace. But the race is very long, and we manage everything. My teammates are fast too, so we have no problem for.
これ来るな。コンマ5秒早いね。コンマ5、7。29秒746に対して29分085、コンマ7秒縮めてきた。コンマ7秒弱か。
Well, my apologies to Sylvain Guintoli and to Freddie Forey, both of whom I managed to misidentifiy before.
で、セクター1が36秒401に対して35秒977。これで次で5秒 5.2 秒ぐらいなってくると思う。いや、もう乗れてんでしょうね。確実に乗れてるよ。53秒681に対してもう来るよ。53秒204。ギャップなんと5秒切りました。4秒627。これ抜くぞ。ただピットがね、まだだけどピットでまた開いちゃうからね。でこのルーティンがいってピットが1回減らせれば勝てるんだけどね。でも確実にタイムは縮まってるから。
The 1.8 kilometer long Mistral straight and heading in towards the right-hander which follows. The lights illuminating the
ちょっと若干コンマ011タイムが出ない。セクター2で出るでしょ多分。 29秒775でしょ。多分29秒0、ほら016、ほら来た。うわこれすげえぞ。次3秒台やね。3秒切るかもわからんね。すげえ追い上げ。
We will try to push and to continue in this target because we are in the top 5 and
さあ来るぞ。
it's quite okay. Okay, thank you. Cheers.
Good to catch up then with Randy Depunier. The Yamaha R1 machine sitting in 5th position in this race. So the last of the quintet of the first 5 superbikes in this race.
ほら3秒423、ほぼ同時に来たぞ。
And of course is the BMRT 3D Max S Livia Kawasaki, which have been doing a great job, of course, as we said.
3秒423。
Other people's misfortune in this race as well.
さあこれはどうなるか。
Mechanical issues, the latest one of which was the number 37, the BMW Motorrad.
これタイム出した方がいい？どう？タイムチャート出すか？出しとこうかちょっとだけ。これね。
They'll be able to get that one out before too long, but still at this point with just under 8 hours gone.
ほらもうコンマ1秒刻んできたでしょ。ね、コンマ1秒。
Just flicking it into the left-hander there is one of the Yamahas. See the floodlights.
ほら、もう来たぞ。来たぞ。次もう2秒切んと。2秒切んと。ほら、これね。やっぱりね、ヤマハのマシンはハンドリングいいんだね、やっぱり。来るぞ、ギャップ。
Just looking at the number 96, that's Robbie Rolfo, the Italian, who's out on the machine at the moment. Robbie, as I said, the last of the top 5 riders in that superbike machine. Randy Depunier, we just spoke to a few moments ago, having just gotten off of that R1. And let's see whether they're going to be able to make any inroads on the rest of the field. Looking at the timing screens, they're on the same lap as the number 333 Yamaha squad. Florin out, who is on board that bike.
ちょっと待って。ギャップが2秒43、2秒403。いや3秒切ったよ。ほら約1秒差があるでしょ。起きろってか。分かってるわ。もう来てるわ。さあまずここね2つ36秒。これだからこれいいタイム出してきた。あれ35秒。ここちょっとセクターは負けてるね。セクター2はね確実に勝つと思うよ。多分ねサインボードで出てると思うよ。もう来てるぞ。気合が入ったんで。でもう見えてるからね。2秒だったら確実に見えてるからさ。ほら来たね。セクター2セクター3は勝てんのよ。セクター1が若干ね負けるのよ。でセクター3はもう確実に。いや45秒ってかすげえな。いや45秒って早いやろ。
Third and fourth place teams have made one more stop, so naturally they're going to be in the pit lane for a little bit longer. But let's see how this race is going to.
ほぼ同時につくよ。1. 点何倍やね。1.2 秒。次来る。点滅。ちょっと落ちたね。
as it stands. Then
焦るな焦るな。
by the Yacht Yamaha, and then the number 6 of the ERC Ducati.
早いからね。でもこれね1分。
We look then at the Mistral straight as the riders come down the 1.8 kilometer
コンマ
section
112
of the circuit over to the left-hand side of the track and then into the right-hander. I imagine it's quite disorientating when you're out there on your own. Here is the number 99, number 91 squad.
ほら来た。
Energy endurance
あれこれ抜いた？まあなわけだよな。
riders. And this of course is one of the top
ほら。
1000 machines. So a slower pit stop is to be
もうあれだよこれ2秒やけど1秒8ぐらいだよ。
wheels etc. So it's going to take that bit longer.
1秒8。
and so on. So
セクター2、セクター1買ったね。あ、これがちょっと遅かったのか。
sounds on track, Taylor.
鈴木のマシンが。
ほら
コンマ42刻んだよ。これ1秒切るね、下手したら。あ、1秒切るか。もう見えてるってこと。もう目の前にいんのよ。
Mechanical problems now, and unfortunately we haven't seen, unless I missed it when I nipped to the toilet, but I haven't seen the BMW team back out. No, they're still in the pits
still
now.
in the pits, yeah, they've been there for a long time now.
Yeah, so that's obviously fairly terminal.
夜間の追い上げ激しいね。
Yeah, it's at least 15, 16 minutes they've been in the pit lane there. So
これね、この走りってね、絶対ね、評価上がるよ。評価がすごいいいんじゃない？あ、ちょっとあれか。ほらでも1秒切ったよ。トータルでほら。敵さんも敵さんちとは怒られるけどね。そら一応もう目の前。目の前。テールトゥノーズ。もうちょっとでもう来るよ。これはすごい。そうね、これで先にランプタイム出た方がもう抜いたってこと。心くんが出たらちょっと遅れたか。ちょっと遅れたね。これが入れ替わるかもわからんからね。セクター2でちょっとまあ1秒あれするから次の周回かな。あ、ただね周回抜けあ、これ来たぞ来たぞ、抜いたかもわからんぞ。多分ねこのねセクター1でね手こずったと思う。抜けなくてもう後ろついてんのよ、間違いなく。で多分ねストレートで抜くと思う。スリップ入って。だからこれ10と11入れ替わるよ。まだかな、次の週かな。いやでも抜けると思うよ。この週で抜くと思う。多分仕掛けられればね。このタイム次のセクター3が悪ければ抜けなかったってこと。ほら来た、ほら来た。予想通り予想通り。これ離していくよ。これ離していくからね。いや早い。すごいすごいすごいこれ。ちょっと待ってね。
Well, they're very much into the bowels of that M1000RR at this point, aren't they? Trying to work out what's wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean the next thing underneath there is clearly the engine, but they've got the back of the bike off, and they were holding electrical components in their hands there. So at the minute they're obviously thinking it's an electrical, but it's just diagnosing what the problem is and what you need to change to fix it.
One thing I'd like to know, we talk about different tyres and different manufacturers as well.
How do
you adapt to your riding style to different tyres, for example? If you're on a Michelin compared to a Dunlop, I imagine that it's quite significantly different to ride between the two.
Yeah, it is. But you quickly figure these things out, and there's only a certain way each tyre can be ridden. A Pirelli, for instance, is quite soft on the side of the tyre, so you can only squeeze the brake so hard going into the corner, and it starts to move around quite a lot going in on the brakes, whereas a Dunlop or a Michelin or a Bridgestone, I've not actually ridden them myself, but I've heard a lot from other riders, and they all say the same thing, that they're
抜くだろうと
really
予
stiff
想
on the side of the tyre. And because the carcass is a lot stiffer,
Bingo.
you can afford to brake a lot harder, as we look at Florian Alp, who has been down the road.
Yeah, dear oh dear, that's not good there for the BRD Eagle Experiences team.
素晴らしい
They're on the same lap as the Robbie Rolfo ridden number 96 machine. You can see there, it looks like a low side on the right-hand side of the machine, at least, because that's definitely where he's gone down. He's gone down into a right-hander. That's
まだ何あるかわからんからね
if it is indeed.
We've talked about it
表彰台
blue,
SST の表彰台だよ
surface that's on the outside of the track, and just looking at
うわこれねどうなるんだろ
really aggressive how much
うピ
he's
ット
taken
じゃ
out
ない
of the
ピッ
tank
ト
and
にしてね
overtaken
また
the side
変わんのよこれ
It's
が
like crashing on
で最終のピットの回数が減らせれるかどうか
Yeah.
鈴木のマシンとヤマハのマシンだからどっちが燃費いいかやねでもこの時点で9に対して9のとこもあるのよ
Making me really nervous.
だから
To be honest, because
予測としては今8時間でしょ
paint that we're talking about there is
でうまいこと言ったら8の倍数で言ったらこれねピット回数が2回あと3波21だから2回少ないかもわからないでこのタイムだったら心くんを多分ね時間長く走らすのよでタイムがちょっと伸びないやつはちょっと時間短くするとかでも規定の時間あると思うからねこれ絶対いくと思うよでちなみにね2位との差が2ラッパなのここはね絶対に縮めていくのはいいんやけど無理せんとねこの表彰で3位の確保したらセパンよりすごい評価なのよこれもうでもねこの走りがすごいよね
As they get ready to go out on track once again. It was Florian Out, the rider who was on board that bike before.
まだタイム縮めていってるからね
Crash, and he goes out on track with a double stint, so continues on, does the German rider. Good to
これ
see him
夜は
back
誰
out
が
on
誰か
track.
わからんわ
Clearly not too phased by that crash. I suppose there does come a point, doesn't there, where you just sort of have to accept that if you're going to ride bikes, you are going to
10番心
you sort of have to not be scared of it.
Yeah, I mean that is part of it, but at the same time in an endurance
いや
race,
すごい
no one's expecting you to
ツイ
crash.
ッター見ちゃう
You've
と
got to ride within
いい
your
よ
limits and get to the end. But having said that,
ね
all the top I think
コンマ888やからここからどんだけねあれするかで若干ちょっとねタイムはやっぱ後ろが強いんだよねスリップあるから離せないかもわからん若干ちょっと厳しいね後ろに疲れてんの今
I was alluding to it earlier on as well, of course, that as you said, it's all about finding that balance. You're not riding flat out for the entire 24 hours because that would be preposterous. But I suppose compared to something like you've done, where you're in almost a sprint race, effectively 20 minutes on a stocker, whereas 24 hours on this, you want to have something in reserve because if you're giving it your all, then there is going to come a point where you're going to get tired and possibly over.
こうしたいのか両方でもこれやとギャップが見えないんだよね
We saw this with Kevin Callier in Le Mans. He overstepped the mark with his body, and yeah, there's no place to hide. If you suddenly become too tired and your arms don't work anymore, you're going to brake and your shoulders are going to start collapsing forward. You get shoved into the front of the bike. You go to lean in, you can't hang off the bike as much because you're cramping up, and suddenly what was already a difficult task becomes 10 times harder. And then when you're riding like that, everything becomes even harder then. because when you're fit and you're strong and you're not tired, you can use your body in a way that saves energy.
話してる。
And things like that.
あ、28秒877とか、今でね、1秒29やから離れてってんねん。
3D Max says Nevers team leading the standings going into the bowl door, 9 points ahead of the National Motor.
1.29やったら多分ね、どうなんやろ、もう多分ね、マシンのそのストレートとかの伸びがヤマハの方が上かもわからんね。セクター1がコンマ25、コンマ15早いの、心君の方が。ここで多分ね、コンマ5ぐらい早いの。多分どうかミスがなければ。ああ、もう完全29だろ次。ほらね、28秒685でしょ。で29秒248。コンマ6秒か。コンマ6秒ぐらいでしょ。セクダツ早いの、28秒台もコンスタント出していってるよ。で、心くんの、タイムをね、ちょっと見てみると、セクター1が36秒台なんで、36秒ので安定させてんのよ。で、セクター2が29秒台いくけども、セクター3が42秒、45秒なんで違うでしょ。あ、ピットインだ。うわー、これだよね。ここで逆転なんだよ。だからこれが妥当なそのあれなのか分からへんねんけども、難しいね。でもこの延長戦でいったら、そのピット回数はヤマハのが少ないの。やっぱり燃費すごいのかな。でちなみにね、9回のはでも鈴木もね9回遅いやつですけどね。BMW も細いやつで、早いところで行くとね、ちょっと待ってね。これでも変わらないね。あ、ちょっとピットになってんねんけど。あ、来ないからか。ピットアウト。でもこれだったら次ピットインするでしょ。ピットアウト、そのタイムをちゃんと縮めていけば、タイムをこう開けられなければ次ピットインしてピットアウト相手がした時には抜けんのよ。さあどうか。まあ一回アウトラップに関してはヒルさん、ステファン・ヒルさん。タイムどう2周目以降ねどう出すかなんだよね。ここはしゃあないね。
They've had a disastrous weekend, really. Xavi Flores got taken out in practice. I think he's damaged his shoulder. And yeah, massive title blow, really. They've got one more round left at Most in a couple of weeks' time. But not the news that they were hoping for today, or the result they wanted.
Just from Richard John on Twitter.
いい感じ。
What's a good pit stop time? They're varying so much.
まあ1周目30秒でね。だここでどうかなのよ。アレクシスさんね、44番のアレクシスさん、マスボーアレクシスさんはね、36秒台と29秒台と、53秒台か4秒台かでしょ。 ら次の周回でどれぐらいで持っていけるかだよね。
Just seeing that Alexei Mazbou has managed to leapfrog the number 66 Yamaha team. That's in the stock 1000 category. Seven Hill now out on the number 66 Yamaha. Just coming out of their pit lane, pit stop rather, I should
こ
say.
こはさ、映してほしいよね。
Third in class in the stock 1000 category.
ほんと SST もさクラスではあるんやからさ3位争いだよ。やっぱ1本になるんだよね。
Yeah, that's right. Luke Stapleton's team. Stefan also raced in 300 class, I believe. He used to get help from Cal Crutch, so I remember seeing Stefan in
あーちょっと遅いな。37秒176。やっぱりね。うわーこれ
So yeah, good to see him back out in World Endurance and doing well.
Yeah, not bad at all seeing third in class. That'd be a nice little podium result for him, but of course still plenty of the race to go.
これでもさ、そのまあ来年はね、トネさんから出るっていうのかなるけども、もしトネさんから出なくてまた行っていいよってなったら絶対呼ばれるよな。間違いなく。間違いなく呼ばれるやろな。
So the gap earlier on did state on the timing screens that there was a lap between the top two, but it's now a minute and 10 seconds. Either way, since we started on our stint on commentary about 2 hours ago,
もう当然チームからは絶対褒められる俺は。
Yeah, yeah. Especially at this stage in the race now, we're moving on a third of the way through.
Yeah, absolutely right. Here there
あでも
is,
29 秒台出してきたよ。うん。29倍台のね出してきてるから。ああでも35秒台ですね。53秒。あいいね。あれあそうかそうか。
Just negotiating his way then through some traffic. Here is Greg Black making his way past some of the slower riders through the field and, well, just having to take a little bit of evasive action.
あーちょっと出ないな。
I imagine that's a little bit off-putting when you've got somebody coming steaming up your inside.
Yeah, it's
タイムが出てないね。
in this race because there's a quite varying
コンマ3秒遅いねセクターマン。
big gap in speed between the fastest bike on track and the slowest. And they're riding their own race, they're trying to get a result for themselves, but when a faster rider is coming through, I'd imagine it's quite daunting at this time of night when the rider suddenly appears out of nowhere behind you and shoves you out of the way. So yeah, those guys
セクターは29秒台出すんだよね。
they've just got to keep riding their own race and try and not get in the way, but the best way to do that is to just stay on the normal line they would be, and the
セクター3で出してくれればね。
find a way to get past. It's when
1分58秒561より短く走れるかどうか。
Yeah, just a case of making sure that you sort of anticipate what the rider's doing. And I guess a lot of that comes down to experience, right?
Yeah, it's easier on a race event like this because although the slower riders are 5 seconds a lap slower, they'll all be on a similar line to the fast guys, and the faster bike will be able to know where they're going roughly. Where it gets more difficult is when you're on a track day and there's a difference in speed and riding abilities amongst riders, and not everyone necessarily knows the sort of rough line you should be on. So you see guys on opposite sides of the track.
52秒出してきた。早い。
ステファン。
挽回したね。コンマ2秒ぐらい。コンマ2、3秒、コンマ2秒ぐらい。
1.9 seconds, 1.1 minutes and 9 seconds, I should say. They're coming down ever so slightly, but not by anything too much to write home about. You can see just how spread out the field is there as they come through the floodlit section. There you go. Again, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen the different tyres that the different manufacturers are on, just picking his way through the traffic. Just looking up and down the order, no sort of big horror stories to tell about. A few riders, a few teams making their pit stops in the Stop 1000 class, but
でもね、ベストラップはね、その44番の方が上なの。
a shame for the 37 BMW squad, who of course having that.
あ、でも同一、その周回走るようになってきたね。比較しやすくなってきた。
Its conclusion later on this year at Most, and well, still plenty of opportunity for them in that 8-hour endurance race to be able to turn things around. So in terms of the standings, well, it's going to have a certain knock-on effect.
これか。
And we'll see what it's going to look like after the 24-hour race has reached its conclusion.
36秒切ったね。あれなんでマルスボー来ないぞ。タイム出ないぞ。着実にタイムでセクター3が出すからね。あ、ちょっと54秒か。でも多分ね、53. 点何歩でも多分あれ行くんじゃない？あ、そうだよね。一周あんだよね。やっと今同一周回。
Chuck the commentator's curse on them there.
Either that or they've got a bet on it now and they want to cash out early. That's what you can do these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
Put a cheeky wager on it.
Yeah.
If you want to get in touch and ask any questions over the course of this one, at Tom Brooks Comms on Twitter or at Taylor Max.
うわー、52秒出してきたね。
Track limits by Greg Black. We haven't seen many.
ちょっとタイム差開けられちゃいましたね。
Keeping a keen eye on that, right?
Well, I did think
Nah,
that
man,
every
danger.
single lap someone is using that piece of blue paint there, so I just presume they're allowed to use it in this race because I think pretty much every team so far would have a penalty otherwise, and I haven't seen anything appear. So yeah, it seems like they're allowed to use that piece. You wouldn't gain any advantage using that bit of blue track anyway onto the straight because it's so long. It's not providing any advantage. I think it's probably easier for the organisers to not have to bother sitting looking at that piece of tarmac for 24 hours to see who's getting an advantage.
28秒出してんだけどね。
Yamaha, who's going to take over on board that machine. Let's wait and see.
Can I put?
Yeah, Nicolo
Yamaha
will be back out on the bike. We saw him with some phenomenal onboard shots earlier on then in this race, sitting in second
熱い
position.
な。
Is the R1. Lovely livery. Now, I do love this 60th anniversary livery that all Yamaha seem to be running this weekend.
Yeah, someone actually asked me earlier if Taron and McCann's Yamaha team will be using it, and they will next week at Alton Park be using that as well. I've seen Taron's fancy leathers sat in the house.
これ比較できたんやね。
Really cool.
You two,
So
by
no,
the way,
これ
are
とこれっ
hilarious
つって。
on social media, I've got to be honest.
It's not intentional, that's just our lives.
Your thing about him last week about what was it when he busted his hand in the crash in race 1, and then he said, I don't care what you say about him, you're emptying the dishwasher tomorrow.
And there you go, that's not me trying to be
縮まらんね。
He does 3
ちょっと待ってね。
superbike races with a
これ入
broken
れてく
hand,
る
and
ね
he'll wake up on Monday and suddenly it's the worst injury in the world, and he can't lift a finger, and I've got to empty the van, and I've got to do everything. So he just plays on my mum's heartstrings. I see right through it, and there's nothing wrong with him.
Oh dear, brotherly love.
Yeah.
Never loses it, does it? Never loses it. Good
I
on.
just want to give a shout out to the number 97 bike with Christopher Platt's currently out there on it. English team, they're running a Kawasaki. Johnny Blackshaw is also riding it with James Edwards, both lads that I've raced against at points in the National Superstock Series, and they're doing a really good job. They're in front of a fair few bikes there.
Yeah, sitting 29th overall, that's 35 that are left right, so not bad going considering them.
もう朝じゃねえか。
To be on the sharper end anyway.
And another shout
いやー、ちょっとね、心くんが早かったけどさ、
They're currently in 35th position, but still doing a
こ
good
れ
job circulating, getting the laps in.
It's all about being in it is a winner, isn't it, with this one? As we've seen,
どこだ
it can get so unpredictable at the points when you're not expecting it.
I think this is actually their first 24-hour race as well. The Le Mans race, they got caught out by because of all all the COVID restrictions, there was a real problem for the British riders getting over there. So they did the Estoril race.
ステファンさんとね、これがさ、ほらタイム縮めてきたでしょ。でこれも縮めてきてるんですよ。36秒184で35秒836でしょ。でこれで52秒797、一周ちょっと遅れ弱かな。で、あ、いいね、1分57秒、早い早い。でこの人が1分何秒で走るかなんで1秒縮まってるよね。うるせえ。
In practice, that's the sort of thing that you would get set, you'd choose your gearing then, and yeah, it's not something you change
ほら
in the middle of a race.
1分50、これ58秒でしょ。だこれで縮まんのよ。これ1ラップになってるんですけど違いますからね。その44号車がコントローラーに通過してまだその週のコントローラーに追加してないからね。で1分58秒89何歩より早く行くか。でこれが1分57って出てるのは予測だよね。セクター3でそのタイムで走ったらっていうやつだよね。ステファン・フィルさん。
Perhaps so mechanically aware of the difference that sprockets makes on a motorbike. What is the difference if you go up or down a couple of teeth on it?
Yeah, so basically on the back sprocket, if you put more
ちょっと若干遅いけど
standard gearing for my bike is 1643, so that means you have 16 teeth on your front sprocket and 43 on the back. So if you put more teeth on the back, so you have 44 sprocket or 45, that effectively, in simple terms, makes the bike accelerate faster, so it'll rev more. So because you've gained acceleration, then you actually lose top speed and it will rev out faster. So
58秒。
if you were on a straight and it's a long straight and you run out of RPM in 6th gear, then you would then need a longer
1分17秒
on your back
フラット
on your back sprocket, so you would go to a 42.
に持ってきたっていうことでね。ちょっと眠いな。冗談抜きで。今寝れねえ。じゃあ一応ねここで終わっておきます。ちょっと6時半なのでね。はい、というわけでね、これちょっとアーカイブ残さないので、はい、これでねどうなるかっていうのをまた見たいと思います。じゃあさようなら。